Today we are going to play one more old classic pack, Crash Landing, which is even older than the golden age of 1.7. We are in 1.6. As you can see, this pack is so old that there is only one save that hasn't been touched in the past 10 years. Since that world is probably filled with dust, we shall make a new one. This is a pack from the old days when packs were actually challenging. We don't even have the option to not play in hardcore mode. Now, this is a truly hardcore pack and our time is really limited by many factors, so we shall rush in some stuff before night comes and we spawn at midday. The lore is about having crashed our ship in an hostile environment and having to survive with whatever we can salvage from our spaceship. The most important thing we have salvaged is probably a guidebook that will help us get out of this planet. The first issue we have to take care of is water and heat. We have to drink about 3 bottles of water each day to keep ourselves hydrated, or we could die of dehydration or hypothermia. And here you can see our crashed rocket and the harsh planet we landed on. To better manage our water, we can use a camel pack and take sips from it. And we have about 3 days worth of supplies with us. Now, I do know this was a new save, but we still have only dust to work with, so let's collect some. And we can exchange some with the quest book to get some stuff to work with. The next quest is going to require a lot of stuff, so we shall start working our back to get some materials before night comes. We start by growing some wood on the only piece of dirt we have. But, more than the wood, what we need is saplings. We can use these to get more water and more dirt. To help us with the collection, we can craft a couple of crooks. Breaking leaves with these will yield more saplings and also some worms. And we are going to spend the rest of the first afternoon to work one more 3 with these new tools. Now, night is almost there, so we shall gather some dust while also making a trench around our base. During this first night we have one main goal, other than surviving, collecting 6 bones for the tools for the next quest. To do that, we are going to use almost all of the ammunition that was on the rocket, and don't ask me why we had a refill on a rocket ship. And the hardest part is probably the quick run we have to do to collect our loot. That went better than expected. Now we can close off the door and spend the rest of the night working inside. The first thing we shall work on is a shell constructor. This machine will build a clone of ourselves so that we can respawn in case of need. Once we give it power, you can see the clone being built starting from the feet. That will take quite some time and we won't be able to respawn until our clone is ready. And we can spend the rest of the night sifting dust. That will give us some metal dusts and other goodies. That took almost all of the night, and here you can see the product of our hard work. To progress the quest line, we need some tools. We can start by making all of the thinker's tables. Once we have everything, we can start working with the old UI. Finally, we make all the tools required, thus completing the first task of the next main quest. Then, we also make a new weapon, and thus it is time to go outside of our bunker. Where, unluckily, there is no grass to touch, only nasty creatures. Once we secured the area, we are going to go back into farming 3s. We need 30 sapling every day for our water supply. But, before making water, we are going to make a barrel so that we can compost some saplings to get more dirt to expand our farm. And all that work under the sun is giving us a head stroke. That is also because we run out of water. And our reservoir will only last about 2 more days. So we spent the rest of the day increasing our farm size. It is now night, so better shout in. We use all the wood we collected to complete the last task of the main quest. The next quest is to get a furnace. Since it is night, the only thing left to do is to make a dust cave under our ship. However, to get the furnace we need 52 pebbles, and getting these by sifting dust is going to take way too much time. Instead, we should probably use some of our precious saplings and sift dirt, which has a 20 times higher drop chance. And it was then that our burning clock made us notice that a new day already started. Today, after securing the zone, we are going to farm something different. By breaking leaves with a crook, we previously obtained some silkworms. Now we can drop one inside a leaf to start an infestation, which will slowly turn the whole leaf block white. And then it will also spread out to the rest of the plant. Once the worms finished their job, we can collect some silk in string format. We can compost that to get some extra dirt. During the next night, we can sift that dirt to get the pebbles required to finally make our first furnace. And we use that to make some torches, so that we can turn off the accidental mob spawner we made under our ship. We can also use the torches to prevent mobs from spawning during the night around our base. However, all of that working and running around to set up torches, gave us a huge fever and make us feel dizzy. In such dire situations, we can drink some muddy water. To do that, we can start by making some dirt. Next we squeeze some moist out of a dirt block to fill up a bottle, and this is probably not something too healthy to drink. And after a fight, we end up being reincarnated into our clone, which does not suffer from drinking issues. However, the door is still open and we don't have items to close it. And before we manage to get some stuff to fix the issue, we get invaded. So we end up cornered into this tiny room. The situation is getting too nasty and we did too many oopsies, so we load a backup, and this time we rush some better water using some saplings. Also, we are going to use the strings to make a bed, so that we can skip the nights with all of what they involve. The next issue we shall work on is food, since so far our diet consists of zombie jerky and cooked worms. What a delicious delicacy! To start our farm, we cook some blocks of iron dusts, which we can also get by sifting dust. We make some shears which we can use to cut 3 leaves. Leaves can be used as saplings, but since we get way more that way, we finally have a reliable source of dirt and water. But that won't work if we don't find a way of making power, since we have now exhausted the batteries of our rocket. So, while our farm begins its expansion, we shall rush a survivalist generator. To do that, we need some cobblestone, so we sift a lot of dirt, which will also give us more seeds for our farm. After a lot of sifting, our farm is finally taking shape and we have the required stone for the generator. This bad boy will run for 5 minutes with just 1 piece of oak planks and has a huge internal battery, but the generation is rather low. But still enough for our needs. Now that we have all of the required resources for survival, we can start trying to do some automation to start working on fixing our rocket. To do so, we need the autonomous activator given by the quest and a sieve. We place them side by side and drop in some dust. However, this process is going to be slow and messy. We need to find a way at least to make the stuff go inside the chest. To do that, we add some water and some wood. And here it goes. While this helps us a lot, we still have to gather the materials to sift, and it is also quite inefficient at making stone. To fix that, we set up a crucible heated by torch. And we fill it with stone that will melt into lava. And thus we have a cobblestone generator. We can break that with a hammer to obtain gravel, which can be sifted for metals. However, this is still a long manual work, so we shall find a way of automating that. One way is to make a transfer node that will give us a lot of cobblestone. But, since we need gravel, we are going to use our autonomous activator with an hammer and the correct settings instead. Getting back on track. For the next quest we need a lot of resources. The first we shall tackle is leather. Instead of manually fighting zombies, I think it would be a better idea to have a wall surround our area. That will also make our factory start to look like something more than a crashed rocket with 2 3s nearby. Once done, we just have to collect the loot once the night is out. And thus we can complete some parts of the next main quest. Meanwhile, our autonomous activator has stocked up quite a bunch of raw minerals, which we can work with our hammer to increase the yield. And thus we have acquired all the metals we will need later on. But, for the moment, we are only going to make a golden backpack, so that we are ready to go scout for one of the lost cities, where we will hopefully find a smeltery. Or maybe not. Let's do some cooking to have something to eat while we will be on our journey. It is now adventure time. And, after one really long walk in the dust desert, we have managed to find the rudiments of one of the old lost cities. As we barely managed to visit it, we are welcomed by a giant zombie pigman, who sends us back to our base. After loading a backup, we work some iron so that we can get some armor to be more prepared for the next time. Now time for one more long walk. This time, we managed to do some more inspection and gather some resources, before being surprised by the night and thus be sent again back to the starting point. For the next run we shall bring a sleeping bed with us. And after one more long run, we managed to get again back to the town. This time, we managed to get some loot, but no smeltery was found. Before starting our search all over again, we pass by our base where we make a launching tower so that we can fly and waste less time running. And that brought us into a graveyard, where only nasty mobs can be found. And right after that we found our next town to visit. And while we found some more interesting loot, no smeltery was found this time either. Next town, no luck either. I mean, no luck in finding a smeltery. We got slightly luckier with the fights. Or at least it looked like, until we run out of food and an invisible spider sneaked an ambush. I think we shall now try an alternative approach into making the smeltery. A way of making it by melting down the pebbles we get from dust and dirt sifting. The issue is that it will take a lot of time to insert all of these pebbles, not to mention the collecting part. Also, one whole stack of pebbles gave us around 1 seared brick, and we are going to need more than 1 stack. Getting dirt is not easy, but we can get the pebbles from breaking cooked stone with an hammer. So we are going to have to automate a furnace and get a second autonomous actuator to place the cooked stone to automate that setup. To get that, we first need circuits, so let's see what we can do without the smeltery. To start off, we have to sift some dirt to get rubber 3 seeds, with a 3% chance. So, you know the drill. And, after a lot of sifting, we managed to get our seed, which we plant and water until it grows into a rubber 3. Finally, we collect some rubber from its trunk. Then we cook the raw resin into rubber, which we cook again to get raw plastic. Finally, we make the plastic sheets for the quest. Now we need some circuit boards, and these are going to be a lot harder to make. Before getting into the task, we shall fix our diet. We are not getting enough nutrients and thus our food can't satiate us anymore. To get some new varieties of food, we first need to touch grass. To do so, we start by making a dirt plot and plant some grass seeds. Then we use bone meal to make new random weeds and plants grow. That will give us a lot of different plants, but we can get even more by using an hoe directly on the grass blocks. And thus we have a nice variety of vegetables and fruits to work with. But that didn't give us any of the mutated plants that we will need for the circuit boards. To get these, we have various means. The first one is going to be easy, we just merge stuff we obtained earlier on. Others can be obtained by mobs, and thus we are going to try to make a squid farm. Doing such task in the dust desert is not easy, so we are going to make the only squid we managed to spawn be enough. Which means that we shall have one more weird farm. And, after a lot of gardening, we managed to get enough seeds to move on to the next automation project, which is making a printed circuit board. To make that, we are going to need a pressure chamber and other pneumatic craft machines. The first task is to gather some iron. We are going to need quite a lot of that, but our passive farm made a bunch and we can increase the output by working it with an hammer. Now that we have the raw metal, it is time to compress it. To do that task, we are going to need the help of a creeper. For once, they are useful at something. Now we can quickly craft and build a pressure chamber. To use it, we punch a hole in it and drop in the ingredients of the crafting. Then we turn on the air compressor and wait for enough pressure to build up. And, once the pressure inside the pressure chamber reaches the required amount, we can see the items being compressed into something else. Then we proceed into retrieving our newly made blue plastic. And we can also use this chamber to compress iron more efficiently and to make other weird things required for the quest progress. Now we can start working on our circuits. After making the basic boards in the pressure chamber, we first have to etch these boards using compressed air. Then we have to throw these into some etching acid and let these process. After a while, they will turn into the basic boards, and we have to retrieve these before they get despawned. Finally, we add a bunch of transistors and capacitors to get our first PCB. We use the reward iron to upgrade our pressure chamber so that we no longer have to break it to insert and extract items. Now we can insert and extract items with this nice looking automation system. And since we are no longer breaking the room, we can now retain a lot of pressure between the crafts. Anyways, now that we have circuits, we can start making new machines, and we shall start from more autonomous activators, so that we can have a system that cooks and breaks stone. This will make a lot of pebbles, which we can melt in a crucible to get seared stone. And thus, we finally have a smeltery. Or so we tough. In this version, we can only make the 3x3 version. And thus, we go back into smelting stone and farming while we get the last parts. Until we finally have our automated smeltery, which will double our ores. And now that we have stocked up a lot of different metals, we can start making some heavier machinery, such as an automated 3 farm, or a mob farm that will produce a lot of useful resources and some mob essence which we can swap with the book to get some spawns to populate this planet. Now that we turned this dust desert into a lively place, we can sit and drink some fresh water while admiring our work.